the title of the stream for today is Torghast and other things, but mostly Torghast. And I want to talk smack about it and talk about what I'd like to see in, I guess, the near future with 9.2.5 and Season 4. What would I like to see? Wish lists, sorts of stuff. I'm going to try to limit the lamenting and the regret, but I mean, I'll at least touch on it because not doing that would be sort of, I don't know, denying reality. I want to talk a little bit at least about Torghast. Because when it was first announced, man, I was excited for that thing. I don't recall when I started playing Hades. It's a pretty well-known roguelite sort of game. And if you never played it, look it up. Hades, like the mythology spells it out. It's on Steam, it's on the Epic Game Store, it's all over the place. It's on consoles, I think, too. I think I was fresh off of that, or I was kind of fresh on this whole roguelite sort of thing when they announced Shadowlands, and I was like, dude, this is awesome. Torghast is going to be like a, and I imagined that it would play sort of like that. It's like, dude, okay, so I imagine myself, I'm going to drop into this thing, I'm going to be naked and afraid, I'm going to slowly progress my way through and pick up powers, and it's going to be awesome. And obviously it did not turn out that way, but I was sold on the premise. I was sold on the idea, and there's a lot about Torghast, even now, especially with the Jailer's Gauntlet, that executes itself pretty well. I'd say the Jailer's Gauntlet does a better job of expressing expressing the vision than what Torghast originally did. Like, a lot of folks, this is kind of a myth. A lot of folks were stuck on the whole idea of, oh man, Torghast was great during the alpha when it was first introduced, and it was introduced as kind of like this pseudo endless run. It wasn't really endless. It ended at, I believe, 72 floors. But you just kept climbing and climbing, and you got more and more powers, and things got crazier and crazier. And enemies scaled up, but for the most part, I think it kind of depended on your spec, and not all specs were available for testing at the time. Depending on your spec, it was like kind of a cakewalk. It was just like Dynasty Warriors climbing all the way up, and that felt fun for folks. But I think people sort of started lying to themselves, thinking that this was going to be it, when that's not what roguelites are for, necessarily. And so when we saw more and more iterations of how Torghast was looking, people got more and more turned off by it because one, it was, the premise itself, the whole gameplay aspect, it was changing and shifting to be things that some people didn't like, but more importantly, this is just during development. It started to develop like these more punishing things, which is kind of the whole point of a roguelite. But people didn't like that either. I think what hurt Torghast the most during development, and throughout most of its lifetime in Shadowlands, is that it was tied to a single thing, and it made Torghast into a thing that you had to do. And I'm talking about legendaries. You had to do Torghast in order to get that Soul Ash and Soul Cinders and whatever. Soul Ash and then Soul Cinders, sorry. You could do the mission table, but that was woefully inefficient. That wasn't the way to go. That was a way to get... I don't even know why they had Soul Ash and Soul Cinders on the mission table. It was so pitiful that it's like, okay, what's the point? At one point, Torghast had... it had kind of the feel of Horrific Visions, or it was announced that it was going to have that feel of Horrific Visions, where you would only run so many times a week, or you can only run so much because you needed a key or something like that. And players, including myself, responded pretty strongly to that. It's like, okay, I get it, but you really shouldn't do that, Blizz. That sounds like a very bad idea. And eventually Blizzard relented. They're like, okay, cool, we're going to take that out. Y'all can run it as much as you like. However, the rewards that you get are going to be capped. And if you want to just run it for funsies, cool. And I think the reactions to that were like, hey, cool, great. But there was this kind of nagging feeling too, because folks could, at that point as well, kind of distill this into, well, we still need to do this in order to get this soul ash that we need to make legendaries. Even if there is like a limit to how many legendaries that people would want to make anyway, because, hey, the guide said I should make this one, so I only need to make one legendary, and then cool. And there's a fly in here. That's great. The problem, though, was that there was only one source of this soul ash. That was it. If there were, if something like Cosmic Flux existed in 9.0, we probably would have received a lot of Shadowlands differently, because there would have been multiple paths to get to where you wanted to go. And that's something that WoW tries to embrace, but it's very... It can get really janky sometimes, and Torghast is definitely one of those signs of it being janky. By the way, thank you, Raintala, for subscribing. Much appreciated. So we saw this problem all throughout Shadowlands' lifetime. I gotta go back to Torghast because I gotta farm the things that I have to get, because I gotta get the rank 6 thingamajigger. Now I need this much more stuff. Oh, now I need to recraft my legendary because now I got to deal with this domination shard bullshit. Yada 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 yada. And there were very founded arguments against that. And so we were grilling Blizzard to like, do something about this. And so things were eventually being done. Hey, here's some more sources of ash and cinders. Here are and forget the weekly lockout. Just go ahead and do it. Farm your face off. And so people were like, yay. Not what we wanted, but yay, I guess. And eventually, now we're at 9.2. Now we have, rewind a little bit, being able to trade Soul Ash and whatnot. That was great. 9.2 brought us trading Soul Cinders. And finally, we got that whatever thing it's called, that baggie, to get a whole crap ton of ash and cinders to either use on our main or to trade that stuff to alts, and so on and so forth. And that's great. That's cool. We finally got to a place where we wanted to be this whole time, to treat ash and cinders like artifact power, pretty much. Have it drop in more places. All right. Now we have this kind of awkward, haphazard way to do it. And that's the history of Torghast in a nutshell. Because the gameplay itself, while people were really bogged down by the apparent necessity of having to go in for those materials, while it wasn't exactly... It wasn't actually made evenly for all specs and all classes and all roles, but what Blizzard was trying to deliver was fun and chaos and madness. Hey, dude, you're a healer, you're a shaman healer. Oh, you're gonna do ridiculous damage. What? And it turns out, yeah, they do. I still have dreams. I still have aspirations of getting like one of my mages up. Get them like a decent amount of gear, throw them into Torghast, and then go back to do the Twisting Corridors, because I want to have like a bajillion mages running around, with the super smart clones, and they're just like throwing, I don't know, ice lances probably, because those are the craziest looking, or maybe like a whole bunch of pyroblasts. I don't know, like any of those would be like extremely fun for me, because I love that chaos, and there's like, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot of impact to that. It's just a very personal thing. But a couple weeks ago, we learned, hey guys, we're gonna have a 9.2.5, and we're all like, whoa, okay, that's cool. They're gonna add more stuff. And then the other week, they're like, oh, and on top of that, we're gonna have a fucking season 4 on top of that. Damn! Wow! So we're going to be here in Shadowlands for a bit longer. And so the question to ask is, beyond this season content that's coming, PvP season, Mythic Plus season, the craziness of the raids, and those are honestly going to be crazy. A lot of people are talking about that. I want to talk about outside of the big three, as I tend to do these days now. And I want to focus on Torghast because so far there hasn't been much mention about it. And with a new season / new patch typically comes, new quests, new landmass, all sorts of new stuff. And so far, we're still waiting for a new build. We might learn a whole bunch of new stuff this week. And what I say now might be like, whoop, wow, okay, that happened. But until then, I just want to talk about this because that's hella fun, right? I want to talk about what can be done with Torghast in Season 4 / 9.2.5. So now I want to brainstorm live. This is going to go great. I want to brainstorm about Torghast. What can we do? Not what can we do. Okay, when I say what can we do, I guess I mean what can I bitch for? What can I whine for? What can I be like, Blizz, we want it. We want it now. There's what we want. We'll talk about that. But I'll also want to consider what is feasible. What is feasible in the span of I'm asking for this now. The patch is already in PTR. And it's going to be like what, 2 months or so, or maybe when 9.25 comes out and then Season 4 starts. What can we bitch for? This would have to be like tweaks and hot fixes, or at that level. But I do want to see more things in Torghast. I do want to see a reason to go back, because as of right now, outside of the cosmetics that you would be able to get from climbing and the long-term achievements that come from that, that's it. At the moment, there's no reason to venture into Torghast in Season 4 because, well, they haven't announced anything for Torghast in Season 4. But what would we like to have? So I want to try to carefully balance what I want versus what is possible, because I'm sure I'd love to say, dude, I want a endless sort of run. I want to be able to climb the Jailer's Gauntlet, well beyond layer 8, and I want to do layer 20 or something like that, kind of like Mythic Plus, because that has infinite scaling. Blizz, why can't Torghast? But how feasible is that? Between engineering something, implementing it, testing it, making sure it's cool, rebalancing, and having that be another one of those plates that they have to balance once everything goes live. And so I'm not sure if that's the way to go, but I guess a goal that I want to hit is to achieve a similar feeling that I had personally, because that's the best way to go about this, speak personally. Personally, I had a great time with Horrific Visions. I didn't like having to farm fucking keys and all that stuff. That was a big pain in the ass, but I did Horrific Visions on every class. Not every spec, but at least every class. And that was a really, really fun project. I got to learn about classes. I got to see how they interact and try to figure out how to cheese Azurite essences in order to make these classes work anyway. But I was, learning a lot of things about class abilities. That's the kind of feel that I want to get. I want a reason to take an alt into there for fun. But at the same time, there's got to be that feel of growth, of progression, because when I get in there, sure, I can, I can try to climb as high as I can with whatever gear that's handy. But how am I going to be able to at least maybe not get Tower Ranger on every class, but how do I at least get to a 16 just through Torghast as kind of an end game sort of thing? And part of me is wondering, hey Blizz, how about we just get gear in Torghast. That's kind of the angle that I want to go down. So let's see how we can push that. And chat, if you want to contribute, please, because I don't have the best ideas. They're just great, but I want the best ideas. Commenters, y'all can share stuff too if I post this on YouTube. I'm thinking of how it was with Horrific Visions, but I'm also thinking, okay, when I walk into Torghast and I go to I go to a cell block and it says, hey, here's the minimum item level that you need. So you have your recommended item level. So why not at the end of a climb have something waiting for you at the end? Maybe it could be a loot box. Maybe it could be, a set piece of gear, that looks like the questing gear and stuff like that. But I do strongly believe that. Let's see, what would be a good start? I'm thinking like how to, easy gear acquisition, how that works in terms of like, okay, you get to max level, you can get access to this item level, you progress through. How's all that going to work? And maybe at a certain, at certain layers, say, like levels 1 through 8 or something, maybe they won't drop anything like super special. But maybe starting at like level 10 or something, then you start getting a certain item level of gear at the end. I think that alone, basically give me a reason to like loop myself back in and pick up stuff. I mean, at this point, we're kind of at a point where, for the most part, we don't need Torghast for legendaries anymore. We can use Cosmic Flux to turn that into whatever. So maybe we could have something where we could use Soul Ash and Cinders to just buy gear or buy loot boxes for said gear. As for how high of an item level, I'm not sure. So I'm just kind of like, throwing out spitballing, surface ideas here, kind of as a jumping off point. But I'm also thinking of Cosmic Flux. If Cosmic Flux can be attained relatively easily, and what would be the player behavior for that? Player behavior would demand, okay, I have a shitload of Cosmic Flux right now. That's going to give me a crap ton of Ash and Cinders, so that means I can gear up and alt really fast with just Torghast stuff. But eventually, I'm gonna have spent a lot of that stuff. So maybe Ash and Cinders for like direct gear boxes. Maybe that's not the best route. Or perhaps, and now we're already reaching a level where maybe this isn't a good idea, or maybe this is too much for Blizzard to do. Maybe we'll have like special Torghast gear just for Torghast, where, okay, not just for Torghast. Let's pretend Torghast gear, you buy, you get this gear, and it has an item level of 226, something like that. But in Torghast, the item level is bumped up by X item level, certain amount. So that way you can climb to like higher stuff. Maybe that could be the route. Special Torghast gear. But of course, how easy would that be to implement? That's something that, hey, maybe if we can, maybe if this is already going to be a thing, it's already in development, and then now we can just kind of like help to steer the direction of how this Torghast specific gear could go. But that would be pretty awesome. Now, okay, let's just go to the moon with this one. Torghast specific gear. Imagine if you could spend a lot of Ash or Cinders or something like that and buy a permanent anima power that you can slot into this Torghast gear. Oh, that'd be sweet. Choose one of the epic powers that you just always have on. Because it's attached to your gear or something like that. That would be sweet. other perks or I mean, right now with the box of many things, maybe they could expand on that, but I don't know where they could really go with it. Yeah, I think I'm kind of stuck on that idea of being able to use ash / cinders for gear, so you can just kind of slot and permanent anima powers. Maybe they don't have to be the epic ones. Maybe they could be like some of the cooler ones. Like, imagine being able to walk in, but you always have the power to see who has the anima powers. You know, small things like that. That would be nice. Throughput ones would be nice too. But it would be pretty cool if there was like some sort of like maximum cap of item level that you can get. You know, so that way, because I talked about this in that earlier video. I don't want toe stepping. I don't want big 3 people to feel like, oh, I have to do Torghast again. Fuck, man. I don't want that. So kind of like how right now, Zereth Mortis has a maximum item level of like 252 or so. Maybe in Season 4, maybe in 9.2.5, perhaps Torghast could kind of offer something similar. So that way, because as of right now at least, given with what we know about 925, what's in it for solo folks? Nothing. Perhaps there will be like an item level bump, but it also means that if it's just an item level bump, it means that there's no new content for solo folks who just want to do world content, who just play by themselves. And they got to have something. I feel like Torghast is the direction to look at for big improvements, or just like new features that are targeted towards solo folks, or just like casual stuff. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't, and I guess it shouldn't need to be like top end shit. But maybe the catalyst should be, gear that you get from Torghast. Maybe that should be compatible with the creation catalyst too, to preserve that sort of stuff. I mean, hell, as of right now, at least, domination shards. That stuff works in Torghast. So maybe there could be some way to make, this Torghast gear. All of those should just have domination shards. And on top of that, I should be able to earn Stygian Embers from Dude, that'd be sweet. Hey, Blizz, can we get like domination? Can we get Stygian Embers from Torghast? Just let people get it. It's so condensed into one area as it is. Fuck it, you might as well just let them have it. Put that shit in Torghast. It's already done. It's already set. It's already like rebalanced and all that stuff. Just leave it in there. Scale it up a little bit to like whatever it is, based on the item level or whatever. That'd be pretty cool. Oh, I'd like that. So we have some takeaways, or we have some keywords so far, right? Getting gear. That's the big one. Domination shard progression. Bring that back. Leave it in Torghast. Don't put it anywhere else. Gear that is specific to Torghast. It's pretty decent in terms of like, hey, it's the equivalent of regular raid gear, but it hasn't. But it's like not best in slot, but it's like it's almost equal to like heroic or mythic raid item level in Torghast, right? So that way, those folks can get like some cool stuff too, and then of course have tons, whole shitload more of like cosmetics, rewards, things like that. I know people are like focused on the gameplay side of it, and I would love to see improvements there too. Like I want to see the twisting corridors come back as a thing, although I know that that's really grueling of a climb. Like it's long. And it's funny, like some folks, people back then were like, oh, do I want an endless run, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but they don't have like save points. There's no checkpoints or anything like that. So if you die or you DC, that's it. You're done. And that's a terrible feeling. Also, terrible feeling where was when people would be climbing and they could only get so far and they'd hit a wall because the last boss would just like would be impossible because of the scaling. And then the Terror Group comes, game over, and that sucks. So having that out helps. I don't recall if it's gone from the Twisting Corridors too. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't really care about the Torghast score or the Adamant Vaults very much. I mean, it's a cool accolade. It's a cool achievement to it's a cool achievement to achieve if you're able to get all the way up there and maybe get some more of those rewards. So I would say, hey, go ahead and add more cosmetics. I mean, folks on social media, they've unearthed tons and tons of different transmog pieces and whatnot that have been just kind of, they're in the game, they're there, but they just don't have any place to go. And I think pulling some of those out and putting them into Torghast would help. I think that'd be pretty dope. I was pretty butthurt over them not touching Twisting Corridors ever since 9.0. Basically, they haven't done a damn thing with it, and that was extremely disappointing. For them to continue to do nothing beyond what they have done, which is to really take the teeth out of it. I think that, just for the sake of pure gameplay, just put in more stuff. Forget the lore reasons. Let's go beyond that a little bit. I mean, come on, we're going into old raids in season 4. Is there going to be a lore reason to go back, or at least something that's like full canon? Probably not. This is the season of experimentation. A chance to try out new things. So why not? If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. What I'm asking for with a gearing system in there, for progression and all that, maybe that is too big of a scope. It probably is too big of a scope to ask for, because I'm asking, hey, create an item system. Drops and all that stuff. And maybe that's too much. But I'm going to bitch for it anyway. I'm trying to think of trying to think of other improvements for Torghast. That would be a great idea. Just do something like, hey players, we put grateful offerings in Torghast. And everyone will just like bum rush the place. And they will pillage it like a Viking raid. The whole place will be like, what's happening? There's people everywhere. Ah! Small things like that would be awesome. I mean, like having like, if they were to add, I think this would be outside of scope, or I think this is beyond scope. If they were to add quests to go into Torghast, you go to your Covenant, and you know how like there's the campaign quest to save souls and shit like that. If there was another weekly thing or even a daily thing, be like, hey, go to the Torghast and or just like a daily inside Torghast, and your Covenant person happens to be there, depending on who you choose. They're like, hey, champion, can you go in there and just break everything? Just tear this place up, and I'll give you grateful offerings, because I'd be so grateful. And boom, there we go. That'd be a reason for me to go back in, but player behavior demands that I need to know the rate. All right, I need to know the rate, because if I wanted to, I can farm up probably about 25 to 50 offerings within about an hour or two, something like that, and that's still pretty slow. I'd like to get that shit faster, because I want to get this shit over with, you know what I mean? Or a Cinder and Ash dump. You got nothing else to spend your stuff on? Cool, buy Anima with it. I don't know what the exchange rate should be. Obviously, I would like it to be as high or as beneficial to me as I can get away with, but if there was a way to do that and, just continually farm Torghast if I felt like it, that'd be cool too. At a Torghast reputation, I don't know if a Torghast reputation is necessary. No, I don't think it's necessary because we've farmed the crap out of it already. I would say being able to climb to a 16, that would be what I consider my renown of having climbed a lot of Torghast. Being able to, and that's account wide. Account wide rep, guys. We did it. This is a strange hill for you to die on, Soul. I don't think it's strange at all. Because why not? Like I said, it's the season of experimentation. And so the hill that you say that I'm going to die on is, hey, how about these cool things? Where people are trying to drag me down saying, no, they shouldn't. They should just leave it alone. Because if they're going to do something, why not make suggestions? Blizzard is focused right now on evergreen content. I think to be more precise, and this is me totally speculating here, 925 and Season 4 is being worked on by a pretty small team. That isn't going to... That can't afford to do, like, new art or, like, crazy brand new tech. It's not going to involve, like, a lot of engineering. So that's why I have big doubts about, some of the ideas that I have about Torghast sets and set bonuses specific to Torghast, attaching anime press, like those seem kind of crazy. But I'm letting myself go there because it's fun. The more measured thing that I think that they would do that sounds reasonable would be what we started with. Just add some gear. Add like a loot box to it, and cool. But we can go outside of Torghast too. I don't mind. Because the major topic of what I'm trying to get at here is, what can solo players get in Season 4 in 9.2.5? Because right now we haven't seen anything. We saw some quests, and 2 mounts and some transmog. What else are we going to see? It remains to be seen as we get more and more builds. We're gonna learn more stuff. The last thing we saw was something about the Winter Queen, I think. Something about the Winter Queen in Tyrande, but we have no idea what that entails. But as for like gameplay, sure, the big 3 folks, they're gonna have their thing to do. But what about the rest? What about the folks? Heck, I mean, and it's not even so much like big 3 versus solo casual players, right? It's not even about that. It's more about, come on, man, you're not going to be just raiding or just doing PvP or just doing dungeons, because sometimes you don't have your team together for those dungeons, or it's not raid time, or you're in a PvP queue. So do you just sit on your ass and just kind of watch the clock and wait for your queue to run, or do you want to like do something? And I think there should be something to do. I think there can be experiments for solo players too, that they can try out here. Remember, a season of experimentation. Fuck it. And if it doesn't work, okay. Wasted dev time, oh well, but at least they tried it. Better now than at the beginning of an expansion like Torghast, where things just didn't work out, and then it just sort of kept stumbling and trying to play catch up and all that. Yeah, Matthew, I started with Torghast because it sticks out. It sticks out pretty hard, in my opinion. Anything else requires more imagination. We can do that. Maybe we'll think of something awesome. But my first stop, I guess, Torghast, because I feel like there's so much that there can be done there that has been underutilized. So, and I feel like when it comes to gearing in Season 4 for solos, for solo people, I think they need something new to do. They need something a little bit more interesting to do. And Torghast has not dropped gear. So let's look there. That's kind of where I'm coming from. as to why I think Torghast is the first place to look. We've only seen a couple of builds, although it did disappoint me that when they announced 925 in season 4, no mention of. I mean, I don't know how you mentioned that either. No. It'd be easy to bring up. You know, season 4 is going to bring brand new content, or not brand new content. We're going to bring this experimental content for people who do raids, PvP, dungeons, and also for solo play, right? So that it would have been easy lip service, and that's why I'm bringing this up. That's why I'm gonna dust, cause the dust up, and bring it up. What about the rest, right? Do the experiments need to end with the big 3? Do they start and end with them? No, I don't think so. Because if the big 3 are like pillars that keep up WoW, regular content that you do solo, that's the foundation that those pillars sit on. You gotta have something solid there. Otherwise, people ain't really gonna stick around. And the rest sort of falls apart. Here's what I'd like to see. You climb your 5 floors, maybe 7 if you completed the Adamant Vault. And at the end of that, you go through that door, and then the game says, hey, do you want to leave or do you want to keep going? But if you want to keep going, no more anima powers will drop. Mobs are just going to hit harder, and that's it. You just climb as high as you can with the build that you had created on the previous 5 floors. That's it. I think that's all you need. In terms of like the gameplay side of things, if you want that sort of endless feel, but also have the challenge that will inevitably get your ass killed and that you just can't proceed any further, that's it. I think that would be easy. I think that's the easiest way to implement it. Let them climb higher, because eventually everyone will get stomped, and you're just done. Or maybe like when you do climb higher, then the terror grew's back. Then you're limited to like you're limited to these many lives, and then you get kicked out to give some sort of finality to it. What else can we add to that? Every time you clear a floor, you get lives back, and then it caps out at a certain point. But you can kind of like climb your way. You can kind of climb your way back up, something like that. Okay, yeah, I think I'm stuck on that, because I remember I pledged that idea numerous times too throughout Shadowlands. I'm like, dude, hey Blizz, do some new gameplay stuff. You want an endless thing? Cool, give us an endless thing, but do these things instead. I think that's what I'm kind of stuck on, because it's been what I've been stuck on. Whether it's twisting corridors or the regular floors. Once you climb to the end, you take those powers, and then you climb as high as you can. And I think I had suggested other things too, and this is outside of scope, but it would have been to have a sort of leaderboard. Hey, how high was a solo person? 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. How high were they able to climb? And then you can see like the characters, you can see their armor, you can see the powers that they had. And then they can be like, oh man, they had all of like the good shit. They had like the dope ass synergy. They were able to get that far. And then people would be able to analyze that. Raider.io would be able to track all that stuff and be like, all right, dude, you want to climb the highest. This is the meta. This is the meta comp. And here's what they did. The kind of powers that they collected. Stuff like that. That part would be cool, but I think that would be that involves engineering, and I think that breaks the rules. I think that's too much. But very simply, it would be really cool if there was like an endless mode that's meant to test and challenge players. I found that the alpha, with the 70 something floors, that was more like a playground, which is cool. But I don't know, like it doesn't really nail my idea of fun, because you just either climb till it was done or you climb till you got bored. And I think that's bad gameplay. If you just keep going until you're bored, because otherwise there is no end, I don't think that works out very well. There's got to be some sort of end somehow. But you can't have metacomp with RNG powers, can't you? If you give some sort of like accolade or leaderboard or something like that, then players will make that. I mean, they were doing stuff like that with like speedruns for a while, and then that kind of died off. But having an endless thing, I think that introduces new concepts, new player behaviors. How high can we go, boys? We have like this five Mistweaver comp because they do like stupid damage. What can we do with this? Or we got 5 mages, dude. With mirror images and stuff, it'll feel like a South Shore versus Terran Mill raid in Torghast, because there's gonna be fucking clones flying up. They're gonna crash the Torghast servers, and it would be fucking hilarious. That would be so funny to see some stupid shit like that. And then you'll see those comps speed. You'll see like time lapse runs of like mages. The five mage comp, and they're running through. They enter a room. All of them pop mirror images and all that shit. Like 40, 50 dudes, and they just go nuts. I'd love to see that. I mean, you can kind of see that now, but it's like not nearly as entertaining. So I'd love to see something like that. Back to solo players, because that was the topic. Because people will talk about the raids and stuff. I get that, but I'm trying to think, like, what would people outside the big three, what could they get that is, in the next season? I don't want to say nothing. I don't want to conclude that, they're not going to get anything. Because it would suck. We've been there before. Miss Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor. We've been there before where they got effectively nothing. They got like what, a time walking dungeon, something like that. But what can be easily done with who I presume is a small crew? I don't see them bringing back scenarios. They would need to make new scenarios, and I don't think that that's a feasible or reasonable thing to ask for a season. And that seems really soft. It's like, that's it? Just some scenarios to do? The problem with solo play season-wise is that rescaling the big three is way easier than creating completely new stuff, so giving more is probably never something that they can easily do. And that's why my attention went to Torghast first. Because right now in Torghast, there's nothing. Zero. There's zero gear, zero sort of progression. There's cosmetics and all that stuff, which is cool. But apart from that, like, that's it. It feels like, to me, Torghast is the direction to go. And I know that some folks here were like, yeah, I don't think so, man. But I don't see any other route. And I'm not going to not condescend. That's not the right word. But like leveling alts? No. I don't think that's, I don't think that's the way to go. There's gotta be something. That's the takeaway. That's the hope that I want people to walk away with. There's gotta be something that Blizzard can't do. And maybe they won't anyway, right? but I at least want to offer that measure of I want solo players to have that expectation, just like the big three. Just like how they're expecting new item level stuff, new gear, new rewards, yada, yada, yada. Folks that don't play with other people, they should have those sorts of expectations too. It's only fair. And I'm going to stop there. Boom, that's the video.